The Extraordinary Adventures of Mr. Benn, Diver, based on the television series by David McKee. In Festive Road, people were going about their business as usual, and children were playing with their holiday seashells, listening to the sound of the sea. Number 52 is Mr. Benn's house. But there was no sign of Mr. Benn. He wasn't in his room, he wasn't in his garden, and he wasn't in the park. Mr. Benn was by the river, looking at boats and thinking about the adventures they have. It's time I had a new adventure. I'll pay a visit to that special costume shop. And off he went. Inside the shop, as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared. "Good morning, sir," he said. "What would you like to try today?" "Is that a frogman's underwater outfit?" asked Mr. Benn. "Yes," replied the shopkeeper. "Try it on." Mr. Benn went into the changing room and quickly put on the frogman's outfit and the special breathing tube so he could swim underwater. "Now for the door that leads to a new adventure," he said. On the other side of the door, Mr. Benn found himself among rocks beside the sea. He walked to the water's edge and got ready to jump in. "Hey, mind that!" shouted some sailors on a red boat. "It's an underwater boat," thought Mr. Benn. "It's a submarine." "We're going to look for Monster," shouted the captain. "If you see the green submarine, you can say that we'll see the monster first." And the crew climbed into the submarine, and it slowly slid into the water. Mr. Benn was about to jump into the water when there was another shout. "Hey, mind that!" This time, Mr. Benn saw a green submarine. "We're going to look for the monster," shouted the captain. "If you see the red submarine, you can say that we'll see it first. Look out, we're going to dive." And the green submarine slowly slid into the water too. Mr. Benn walked along the shore and met an old sailor who said, "Hello. Are you looking for the monster as well?" "No, I'm not looking for the monster," said Mr. Benn, "but tell me about it." "People say there is a monster living in the waters round here," smiled the old sailor. "Those two submarines are racing to see who'll be the first to photograph it, and they won't stop until there is a winner." "Well, I'm looking for an adventure," said Mr. Benn, and with that he jumped into the water. Beneath the surface, it was like being in a different world. Mr. Benn was happy to swim round just looking at the fish. He'd quite forgotten about the submarines until he saw the red one gliding past him. A little later, the green one went past. Oh, those submarines are a nuisance, he thought. So he swam to the bottom of the sea. Just when he thought he'd seen everything, he spotted a mermaid sitting on a rock and holding something to her ear. "Hello," said Mr. Benn. "You're the first mermaid I've ever seen. But surely you can hear the sea without listening to it in a show." "It's not the sea I'm listening to," she said. "You listen." Mr. Benn put the shell to his ear. "It sounds like the wind," he said at last. "Yes," said the mermaid, "but I'm looking for a new shell for King Neptune's birthday. And he already has one that makes the sound." "Do you mean to say that you can hear different sounds in different shells?" asked Mr. Benn. "Oh yes," said the mermaid. "King Neptune has shells with the sound of the wind, the rain, birds, all sorts of things." "I'll help you search for a new one," said Mr. Benn. But every shell he found, it seemed that King Neptune already had. Then he picked up an unusual shell that sounded like the buzzing of a bee. "He certainly doesn't have that one," said the mermaid. "Come with me and bring it to King Neptune." They swam and swam and came to King Neptune's cave. "Happy birthday," they said, giving him the new shell. King Neptune was delighted. Beside the king sat a huge animal. "Is that the monster the submarines are looking for?" asked Mr. Benn. "Yes, it's my pet monster," said the king. "Those submarines frighten him. I do wish they'd leave us in peace." "Can't you ask the submarines to go away?" pleaded the mermaid. "It's not a very nice birthday for King Neptune." "They're having a race to photograph the monster. But I've an idea," said Mr. Benn, and he swam back to the shore. There he soon found the green submarine. "Have you seen the monster yet?" he asked the captain. "No," growled the captain. "You've probably frightened it away," said Mr. Benn. "If you dressed up your submarine to look like another monster, it wouldn't be frightened. Then you could get close enough to photograph it." "That's a grand idea," said the captain, and told the crew to make a monster costume to cover the submarine. Then Mr. Benn went to the red submarine and said exactly the same thing to the other captain. With that, Mr. Benn swam quickly back to King Neptune's cave. "I've played a little trick on the two submarines," he said. "Let's see if it works. Follow me." Mr. Benn led the way, and they hid behind a huge pile of rocks. "Now watch." In the distance, they could see a monster. "That's really the red submarine in a monster's outfit," said Mr. Benn. "And that's the green submarine," he chuckled as another monster appeared. The two submarine monsters moved round, taking photographs of each other. They both thought they got a photograph of the monster. "We've won!" cheered the red submarine. "We've won!" cheered the green submarine, and away they sailed. King Neptune was delighted, and the real monster gave Mr. Benn a ride back to the shore. At the water's edge, Mr. Benn waved goodbye to the king and the mermaid. Then he looked round for the submarines. Sure enough, they soon sailed past. The captain of the red submarine smiled and waved a photograph of a huge monster. The captain of the green submarine smiled and waved a photograph of another huge monster. "Well, they both have their photographs," said the shopkeeper, who had suddenly appeared beside him. "You deserve a rest. Come into this cave and sit down." Mr. Benn walked into the cave, and, just as he had expected, he found himself back in the changing room. He put his own clothes on and handed over the underwater outfit. "Look, there's a seashell stuck to the suit," smiled the shopkeeper. "It'll make a good souvenir," said Mr. Benn. Back at his house in Festerford, Mr. Benn listened to the seashell. He wasn't sure if it was the sea he could hear or the wind. "Anyway," he said, "it's just the thing to help me remember."